Hey guys, welcome to my first review in a long time, actually. Sorry, I actually had to finish binge watching a few things before I can make a full-on review. I know this isn't exactly the most exciting format to do, but it's the best I can do for now. At least I'm trying my best to avoid copyright because I want to keep making videos and might be this way for a while. We'll see how long this entire thing plays out. So it's going to be like this for a while. Not exciting, but let's talk about Cowboy Bebop. So for those of you who don't know, Cowboy Bebop is a very famous anime directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, hope I said his name right, and it's about a group of bounty hunters in the year 2071 known as cowboys aboard a ship called the Bebop, and it follows the adventures of Faye Valentine, Spike Spiegel, and Jet Black in their quests as they basically just try to make a living. They go off collecting various bounties, which they learn out from this fun little TV program, and they collect various bounties for various wulongs. They hunt down various criminals, and it's actually leads to some pretty fun adventures. So I've heard a lot about this anime. I've actually heard it's one of the best animes of all time. Even people who aren't a fan of this kind of stuff actually really like the show. Its dub is very famous, which is the version that I watched. Steve Bloom does an amazing job as the voice of Spike. I think it's the best part of the show. And I'm not going to lie, this show is pretty much everything I would want out of it. The show has aspects of westerns, sci-fi, noir. It's got some thriller elements in there. It's got some action film stuff in there, almost as a few James Bond type elements. Some great mystery stuff. This show has a lot, and a lot of stuff that I like. And a lot of these aspects fit together pretty well. The idea of futuristic westerns definitely has a lot of Blade Runner in there. You can sense the Blade Runner aspects in there. Sometimes in the music, the aesthetics, definitely the way it's written, the way it's shot. Sometimes in the characters themselves, the idea of these almost synthetic humans, like the idea that they can be kind of like the idea of Spike's character who died years ago and then they brought him back. Faye's character died and then they brought her back years later. It's actually really interesting and kind of fascinating. One thing I appreciate about the show is that it takes its time exploring its characters, which is tough to do because there's only 26 episodes. So there's no time for a big overarching story. They can only do individual episodes, known as sessions. They can only do individual stories. So not a ton, like not every episode is connected, like say MHA or like Dragon Ball. There's not something like that. Granted, those are shown in animes. This is entirely different. But still, like, there's no overarching story here. For the most part, there is something with the character known as Vicious and this syndicate that comes back into play every now and then. Though it is a little weird because Vicious is introduced in, like, I think episode 8 or 9. I could be wrong about that. Then he kind of comes back in a little bit toward the middle. Then he's introduced again at the very end in the final 2 episodes. And I watched the entire show in about 2 weeks. And that was an emotional journey because this show does a lot. There are even some scary elements to it. There's one episode, Pero Le Fou, I hope I said his name right. Perot, where they have this very tragic, horrific story about a little kid who was kidnapped and then he was tortured and had his mind messed with until he became almost a relentless killing machine. Like he can't feel any pain. All he has is the desire to kill, and it leads to a pretty horrific ending that is a little depressing. They have a lot of episodes that have a lot of character stuff to it. One of my favorite episodes is Black Dog Serenade, where we find out about Jet's past and his vengeance from when he was a cop. There are a lot of episodes about Spike's past, about how he is trying to piece together what happened to him in his past with this woman named Julia. And there's a lot of fragments in his mind about how that story went. Faye, this entire time, is trying to discover who she is. There's an episode dedicated to her backstory with a character that it's actually kind of sad. Jet's episode is also pretty sad. Spike's episodes are they're actually pretty tragic. because you can see the idea that this guy could have had a different life. But he simply loves what he does too much. He's a space cowboy, and he very much enjoys that. One of my favorite episodes is also Cowboy Funk, where they meet this literal space cowboy known as Andy, like who takes the cowboy part very seriously. He has a horse, he wears a cap, he has the leather outfit, and he totes a revolver. He does everything like a real life cowboy. And the design of the characters, obviously, they joke the whole time about how Spike and Andy are very similar, and obviously, both in design and personality, they're very similar. It's actually kind of fascinating to see what they do with the characters in the show, because the whole time, this is about the crew of the Bebop. And you grow to like each one of the characters, especially the stuff like Radical Edward can be a little annoying at times, but he or she, I think it's a she. Edward is super funny and very energetic, jumpy all the time, hard not to be entertained. And then Ein is just a cute little space dog. Hard to be not entertained by a cute little space dog. Another thing the show does very well is the action. It's very fast, very intense. It keeps you on your toes the whole time. The final episode in particular, where Spike storms Vicious's tower and tries to gun down everyone inside by himself, I think that's actually really good. Almost has a James Bond feel to it. Very westernish type feel, the idea of an old gunslinger. There are some really good episodes in here. There's one where Jet gets a email from a long-lost comrade, and he meets his daughter. And that leads to some really entertaining stuff. A really heartfelt stuff. There's a few touching moments in the episode. Hard Luck Woman is also a really touching episode where the crew of the Bebop kind of just goes back to being Jet and Spike, what it was in the original. It's a kind of a sad episode. You could almost consider that the ending, though I really like the stuff with Vicious. The ending is kept pretty ambiguous. I'm not going to spoil it unless you haven't seen the anime. It's a very good show. The animation is spectacular. It holds up extremely well. The stories are very entertaining. Every one of them has a different bounty to them. Some are very funny, some are very depressing, some are very action-packed, and some are a nice mix of all of them. I think the show does a really good job with its storytelling. You're invested the whole way through. And even the only real knock I have on the show is that the one episode, I think episode 11, Toys in the Attic, feels kind of throwaway because it's this episode where this black gooey stuff gets in and infects everyone on the Bebop. But what makes it funny is that, it's a fun, entertaining episode. It's mostly on Spike and Edward, but then it's almost never referenced again. Like, they at least do make a couple references to other things that happen in later episodes. This episode just kind of feels out of nowhere, because then right after that we get into Jupiter Jazz, which I think are actually my two favorite episodes. The Jupiter Jazz Part 1 and 2. Those are my favorite episodes in the show. So you go from this very, really fun one-off filler to a very kind of downtrodden, depressing story with Jupiter Jazz, which has some of my favorite storytelling in the series. I also really think that but that's really it. I actually kind of like Toys in the Attic. I think it's a fun, nice one-off filler. It's a nice little light-hearted episode, right before we get into some pretty dark stuff. I loved the Trip Out episode where Ed brings home these mushrooms and they eat them, and it's a Trip Out episode. I think it's actually really hilarious. The show had really amazing writing, and I'm going to hats off to the team. I also have to credit that the opening song is spectacular. I love their opening theme, Tank. Really catchy, nice jazzy feel. Feels like a nice little fun Western sci-fi blend. Cowboy Bebop is spectacular, and other than that episode, which even, again, I don't even find that a bad episode, I really can't think of any missteps with the show. It does a really good job at balancing out its story and its characters, and I think it deserves a lot of credit. I'm not going to grade Cowboy Bebop. I don't like grading things because, then I have to lock things into tiers, and it's weird for me. But anyway, guys, that's just my opinion on Cowboy Bebop. I thought it was really good. I thought it was actually pretty spectacular. I have a few more TV show reviews coming my way. I also have a few movie reviews, films that I'm probably going to watch. Anyway, guys, if you haven't checked out Cowboy Bebop, please check it out. It is so worth your time. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. Please stay safe out there. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. And if you have seen Cowboy Bebop, let me know what you thought of it. So anyways, that's it for me. See you later, Space Cowboys. Bang.